Hello, Sweatable Squad. Welcome back. I am so excited for this episode. If you guys are listening in real time and you are here in the States, it is the 4th of July. Happy 4th. I hope you guys all have some fun plans today to celebrate, making some memes with family and friends, whatever it is. I'm personally going to head up to the mountains and then hang out with my friends later today. Honestly, though, if you are in the Midwest, I am very jealous. If you don't know, I'm a Michigan girl. I grew up in Michigan, and there is truly nothing better than a Midwest 4th of July. I stand by that. In the Midwest, it just hits different. I don't know if it's the lakes. I don't know if it's the energy. I don't know what it is. A Midwest 4th of July is just next level. It is elite. Of course, love living in Colorado, but miss 4th of July when it comes to living out here. So this episode is honestly gear up for it, prep yourself, because it's actually going to come with a little bit of tough love. I'm going to guess that many of you listening to this podcast have fat loss goals. It's the primary goal I see for the women in my audience. You want to lose fat, you want to build muscle. And on top of that, many of you have probably had this goal for years. You've been trying for a long time to lose fat. And if you're not yet where you want to be, it can be really freaking scary and uncomfortable to take fat loss off the table and have that not be your goal. But the truth is that fat loss is not the only fitness goal that you can have. And I bet that if you were to dig a little bit deeper into your overall goals, it's probably actually something different than fat loss. Your actual long-term health and fitness goal might be that you want to feel good in your body and have more confidence, that you want to have more energy to get through the day, that you want to be able to move more easily, to be happy and healthy overall. And to be honest, even though it might seem like it, the weight that the scale says or isn't really a requirement for any of those things. And sometimes when we're fighting so hard to lose fat because we feel like we just can't let that goal go, but we're in a season of life where fat loss doesn't make sense, we start to feel like we're failing. Because when we think that fat loss is the only goal that you can have and you're not achieving it, it feels like you're not making any progress towards your goals. And that can be really, really demotivating. It can be so frustrating, actually, that you start to feel like, what's even the point? Why are you putting in all this work if you're not getting anywhere? Which is actually why sometimes it makes sense to not focus on fat loss. So let this podcast be your permission you might feel you need to not have fat loss as your goal. And yeah, I mean, even if you haven't reached your goal weight yet, because if you allow yourself to not make fat loss the goal, you're likely going to start to feel more successful. And feeling more successful is actually what's going to fuel you to keep going. So instead of stopping and giving up because you feel like you are putting in all this work and you're never making any progress and you have those feelings of like, what's the point? I'm just going to be stuck here. When we allow ourselves to not focus on fat loss and focus on something that we can actually make progress towards, and we start to feel more successful at those things, all of a sudden you're going to become a lot more likely to reach your goals. You start to believe in yourself a lot more. You start to feel a lot better about yourself in general. And this is something I really help my one-on-one online coaching clients navigate, because the truth is that weight loss doesn't always make sense. And sometimes you do need that external help and guidance of a coach to help you realize that maybe now isn't the best time to focus on fat loss and a calorie deficit. Because if that's all you've ever known, and right now it feels like that's the only goal, that's the only thing you should be ever focusing on, especially if you aren't where you want to be in your body, why would you ever allow yourself to make something else the goal? That's going to feel really foreign. So sometimes it can really just help to have a coach, to have someone really helping you see that maybe fat loss isn't what's going to be the best option for you right now. And maybe you would actually be more successful if you stop trying to grit through, if you stop trying to push through and allowed yourself the opportunity to focus on something else, to feel more successful, to actually make progress towards a goal that's best for you right now. So, when are those times? When are the instances that, as a coach, I would recommend you take fat loss off the table and shift your focus to something else? There are a few different instances. The first would be a big life change. And to be clear, it's very possible to lose fat during any sort of life change, like a new job, for instance. And sometimes research has actually shown that the start of something new and a new routine can actually be a really good time to set new goals and establish new routines. But sometimes it doesn't make sense, especially if this life change is a very emotional one. Like maybe it's the loss of a loved one, the ending of a relationship, something that is really draining you emotionally. In these moments, sometimes it makes more sense to focus on the habits that leave you feeling good. So instead of, the mental energy of trying to deal with the end of a relationship, the grief that you're feeling over the loss of a loved one, and on top of that, also expend the mental energy towards counting your calories and hitting the gym 4 days a week, sometimes that all feels like too much. So I want you to give yourself permission to not necessarily focus on the weight loss things, but focus on the habits that still allow you to feel good during this period. So sometimes I know for my coaching clients, it's more along the lines of focusing on daily walks, prioritizing protein, things like that. Things that are going to continue to allow you to feel good without the really stressful additional mental battle of trying to lose weight and track calories. Another instance where it might make sense to table fat loss for the time being would be a very stressful time. And I mean one that's lasting longer than a few weeks. Maybe this is something going on in your personal life. Maybe it's really high stressful period of work. Maybe you have a really difficult client right now. Whatever it is, if you feel like the stress is wearing you down, it's probably not a great time to be losing fat. At the end of the day, a calorie deficit is additional stress on our bodies. And sometimes it makes more sense to remove the extra physical stress of a calorie deficit, allow you to better fuel your body, and instead just have the current external stress that you're experiencing rather than that additional stress of a calorie deficit. Another instance, and this one is a little bit different. This is less about external factors and more about how you're currently feeling. Another instance where it might make sense to maybe table fat loss or put it off the table for good is when fat loss just doesn't feel like a priority. And I don't mean in like, I'm just not feeling very motivated today. I mean, we're talking like weeks and months have gone on, and you're just noticing that in the moment, when you previously had no hard time prioritizing your deficit, when you were really focused on your healthy habits, when previously like staying the course and being really consistent was no issue for you, and now you're noticing time and time again that in the moment you're just realizing fat loss isn't a priority for me. You'd rather have more flexibility in your nutrition and at social events to enjoy yourself. And losing fat just doesn't feel as important to you as it once did. If you're having those feelings time and time again and you're realizing in the moment, like, you know what, it's feeling way more important to me to be able to go to this event with my friends and not have to make those this versus that decisions and allow myself to have the extra wine, and I want to have the abs, and I just like really don't care about what I'm doing with in terms of like the scale tomorrow, it's probably a good indicator that maybe you've reached your goal. Maybe you feel so good in your body, and now it's time to stop focusing on fat loss and start that shift into maintenance. And I know that can be a difficult thing to come to terms with, especially if you're not at this goal weight that you set for yourself. But those goal weights aren't always where we're actually happy in our body. So I'm going to encourage you that if you're having these feelings, might be time to move into maintenance more permanently. Another instance where we might want to ditch fat loss for a little bit is if your biofeedback is tanking. If your energy, your sleep are low and they haven't been low before, your hunger and cravings have increased dramatically. Like maybe it's never felt hard to be in a deficit before, but now it is definitely feeling hard. You're not sleeping well, your energy is super low, you are hungry all the time. Those are all good indicators that we need some sort of maintenance break, whether it's a week-long maintenance break, whether it's a longer period of maintenance break. Those are just really good indicators when our biofeedback is not in a good spot and has been previously while we've been dieting. We need to change something. We need more fuel in our bodies. Let's bump calories up to maintenance for at least a short period of time. Now, this last one is going to ruffle some feathers. So I want you guys to keep an open mind as I'm going through this. And I want you to think about yourself and how you've been viewing fat loss and body recomposition as I'm about to potentially suggest that maybe it's time to shoot for a different goal. So when you have those last 5 to 10 pounds to lose, maybe it's time to not focus on fat loss, but to focus on maintenance instead. Because oftentimes when people have about 5 to 10 pounds that they want to lose, what they actually would be better off doing is increasing your calories up to maintenance and building more muscle rather than trying to lose fat. Those last 5 to 10 pounds usually aren't fat at all. What you're really looking to do when you're looking to lose those last few pounds is to change your body composition. And the better way to do that, especially when you're so lean that you only have a few more pounds to lose, is actually to eat more and focus on building muscle. When you have more muscle, you can dramatically change the composition of your body because muscle actually appears smaller on your body than fat. So if you're like, I just need to lose those last 5 to 10 pounds, I really have more fat to lose, it's actually probably that you don't. It's just that you need to build more muscle, especially if you're like, I'm trying to achieve that toned look. It's not about losing more weight. It's about building more muscle. So I just want you to have an open mind to that. I am a huge proponent, and this is actually rooted in psychology, that you need to have autonomy in this process. That is why I never just throw goals on my clients. It is always an open conversation. We are always working as a team to determine, what our next 3 to 6 to 12 months are going to look like together. Because if you have buy-in, you're going to be much more committed to the process. So I am never going to be like, you have to be in maintenance, you're done losing fat. No, that's always going to be your decision. But my job as a coach is to give you all of this information about when it might make sense to move into a deficit and allow you to make that decision for yourself. Now, I will say that my clients trust me. So a lot of the times when I'm giving them this guidance, they become more open to maintenance and we're able to get them to the place that they need to be together. But again, autonomy is so important and no coach should ever just tell you exactly what your goals are going to be. Like I'm doing in this podcast, I just want to give you the education, the background information so that you can make these decisions for yourself and be in charge of your own journey. And I want you to remember during all of this that just because fat loss is off the table temporarily doesn't mean that you're ditching all of your healthy habits. This is actually where I encourage you to think about what you can still do. Remember that fitness is not black and white. It's not that you're losing fat or you're completely ditching everything that you just worked so hard to build. That's not what I'm talking about here. This is really where I encourage you to focus on the habits that leave you feeling good, keep those up, without necessarily having that extra pressure of losing weight. So maybe you can track your calories, but bumping up to maintenance gives you more flexibility. Maybe you don't have the mental energy to track calories right now, but you could prioritize balanced plates. Maybe you could still go for walks, even if you're not getting to the gym for all your strength training workouts. Just what are the things that you could still keep up to keep you feeling good, even during some of these periods where fat loss just doesn't really make sense. And this is also your reminder that not focusing on fat loss doesn't have to really mean anything. Fat loss is not the only goal to have. And I want you guys to give yourself permission to press pause on fat loss. You can always come back to this, but if you want to allow yourself to press pause, you're going to feel a lot more successful than trying to push through. Fat loss can always be a future goal. You can always come back to your calorie deficit. But if you are experiencing any of those things that I listed in the podcast, I really want to encourage you to give yourself permission to press pause. Stop trying to fight through this never ending battle of feeling like this is your only option, and allow yourself to feel more successful. Allow yourself to build up some more momentum again. And that probably means taking fat loss off the table. So I hope you guys are more open to the idea of fat loss not needing to be your only goal for the rest of the summer or wherever you're at in your fitness journey. If this episode was helpful, the best way for me to grow this community and continue to help more people is when you guys share your this podcast on your stories. So please consider taking a screenshot, sharing it with your friend, sending it to a friend over text. That would truly mean the world to me. And I always appreciate it so much. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for listening. And I hope you have a great holiday weekend.